Three cameras rolling.
Comedy. All right, here it is. I've spent most of my career working as an independent contractor, and I've loved every minute of it. I love being in charge of my own schedule. I love working for people I choose to work for. And I love the freedom that comes from being my own boss. And I'm not alone. Nearly 70 million people in this country work the same way. They don't want to be somebody's employee. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And many of them don't want to join a union. Not that there's anything wrong with that. What they want to do is assume the risk that comes with being an independent contractor in exchange for the many benefits. A lot of these people don't work in my industry. Many of them are truck drivers, dancers, graphic artists, writers, real estate agents, and so forth. I want to introduce you to a couple of these people because right now, all of them are about to lose their ability to work the way they want to work, thanks to a really bad bill called the PRO Act that's making its way through Congress. Happily, I met a guy who's doing something about it, and an organization that's determined to stop it from happening. First things first, Akash, what is the proper way to say your last name?
Chougule.
How many times in your life or just in the last week have you heard people mangle it?
Oh, I've done more conservative talk radio than you would ever think, Mike. I've heard.
That's Akash. He works at Americans for Prosperity, and he believes that public policy exists to empower, not to inhibit. And that's what he focuses on.
Public policy exists to empower, not to inhibit, and that's what we focus on.
See? Akash is the perfect guy to explain how this really bad bill made it all the way to Washington.
This one started in California back in 2018, and the question basically pertains around who is an employee versus who is an independent contractor. In 2018, the California Supreme Court laid down 3 factors to determine who is an employee. It's called the ABC test. AB5 put those 3 factors into law. It completely throws up in the air the distinction between an independent worker and an employee, favoring the side of being an employee. More than 70 million Americans work as independent contractors. That's a long-form way of saying this labor rule is inhibiting freelance job opportunities.
No matter your politics, it's un-American.
That's Will. He works as a journalist, and his job is to eliminate any kind of government barrier to freedom and prosperity.
My job is to eliminate any kind of government barrier to freedom and prosperity.
See? Will is committed to doing all he can to stop this really bad bill from becoming a really bad law.
What California was trying to accomplish was to address exploitation, situations where freelance workers should have been technically full employees with real hourly pay and work schedules that were utterly predictable and benefits.
Seems like a well-intended idea, but what are the unintended consequences? And who's really behind it?
The folks who backed AB5, particularly the Teamsters Union, what they really wanted was a one-size-fits-all kind of situation where all these freelance people were herded out of their independent little shops, if you will, and into large employers where they would be more easily organizing targets for unions. That's their whole goal in this thing.
Again, I'm not looking for trouble with the unions, but thousands of freelancers have already lost the right to work the way they want to work in California. If this thing goes national, we're talking about millions of freelancers no longer free.
So if I live in, Texas or Tennessee or Michigan, Wisconsin, you name it, if I live anywhere else in the U.S. and I look at this, I would be very afraid.
And people are afraid. Every day, more and more of those 70 million independent contractors are beginning to realize exactly what's at stake and the importance of pushing back.
If the PRO Act becomes federal law, which President Biden has said he would sign this into law if Congress passed it, everything you love about independent status ceases to exist, and basically 2 things could happen. Your job entirely disappears because a business simply cannot afford to bring you on as a full-time employee with wages, benefits, etc. So they cease to hire you, or they hire you and the flexibility, the freedom, the entrepreneurial opportunity that you liked to work for different people, to set your own schedule, set your own wage rates, completely disappears and you become an employee, a cog in the wheel.
This is not happening in the third world. This is happening right here.
Public policy is very easy to dehumanize, right? People that work in Congress, work in Washington, you're constantly surrounded by words and laws and policies and numbers, and there are real people who are impacted by this.
I'll spend anywhere from a couple of days to a month just hauling freight all across the country.
How many miles a year on average?
Somewhere around 120.
120,000 miles.
Driving a truck is not a job. It's a lifestyle.
That's Tom. He's one of thousands of independent truckers who had no choice but to leave California. Now, he's fighting against the PRO Act to protect his lifestyle.
I've been in business just over 2 years now. The PRO Act would make it really hard to classify someone working for you as an independent contractor. It would make it so that I can't grow the way I want. My profit margin would suffer. It wouldn't be great for my business.
That's Lauren. She's an independent bookkeeper who hires independent contractors. She's fighting against the PRO Act to run her business the way she wants to.
I've had a stellar career, and I've worked literally all over the world doing all this kind of different independent contracting, frankly.
That's Peter. He's an independent choreographer, and he's fighting against the PRO Act to make a living doing what he loves, dance.
In a very blanketed kind of way, it's like saying you cannot be an independent contractor. So in the case of dance companies like mine, I'm supposed to now bring in dancers as employees, meaning that I need to guarantee them year-round payroll. My company wouldn't last really until the end of the month. It literally kills the idea of becoming an entrepreneur.
You've kind of got to eat what you kill, and you don't know from day to day to week. So why does that work for you?
My wife got a really bad case of bronchitis. If I'm an employee driver and I decide I'm going to stay home for a week and take care of my wife, what's my employer going to do? My employer's going to say,
Nothing good.
Tom, I can't leave that truck sitting still for a week. They'll probably fire me. As an independent contractor, I can just tell dispatch, I'm going to be gone for a week. I'll let you know when I'm ready to go again.
That's the flexibility we talked about before. It advantages in every state if it gets caught up in the slipstream of the PRO Act.
For lawmakers to hear those stories, I think that's the most powerful thing that can move anybody, I think, on this issue in particular, because it so directly impacts people's livelihoods.
If Akash sounds like he's taking all this very personally, it's because he understands firsthand that the freedom to work the way we want is no different than the freedom to live the way we want. And those freedoms always come with a measure of risk. Where's your family from, Akash?
My parents were both born in India. My dad came when he was 27, 28. He came here with $26 in his pockets and traveled the country by overnight bus and ultimately found his first real job in America on the 89th day of his 90-day bus pass. While that story is special to me, it's not unique to America, right? That really is what built this country. It's people taking a chance and having the ability to determine their own circumstances in life.
Not just a chance, it's people betting on something. The bet to leave India. That's a big bet for prosperity.
Our system has empowered hundreds of millions of people across the world to leave poverty and, create better lives for themselves. I think that broader context is something that's always important to remember.
Poor kid from Los Angeles, quit school at 16, makes $146,000.
I didn't start a business to just create a job for myself. I started a business to have that freedom, not just financially, but my time.
My grandfather and my grandmother immigrated to the United States from Greece, and like most immigrants, he opened up his own business. He had a shoe repair shop. That's the American spirit, that's the American dream. People immigrate to this country because they're looking for freedom and they're looking for opportunity. And the PRO Act completely takes all that away, it kills it.
What kind of country are we going to be? Are we going to be a country where the circumstances of your birth don't determine the circumstances of your life? In order for that to be the case, government has to empower the private sector, empower individuals, empower employers, empower every American to pursue their own American dream. That, by and large, involves public policy getting out of the way to do less rather than doing more and inhibiting that opportunity.
Are we going to be the kind of country that allows and even encourages a person to get a 90-day bus pass and get out there into the world to see what they can shake loose on their own? Or are we going to say, no, that could lead to sadness and disappointment. That could lead to failure. Not even going to let you try. The right to try to work the way I want to work, to eat the way I want to eat, to exercise the way I want, to live the way I want. I mean, it's only everything, right?